Many of us might have heard about Tantra, but how many of us have actually cared to understand the profound etymology of the word Tantra? The Sanskrit word Tantra is actually very rich in meaning. It carries a lot of profound meaning to it. So let me break down the etymology for you. The word Tantra is formed by combining two Sanskrit root terminologies, Tanil and Tra. So, Tanil, the root terminology, expands into Tanoti, which means to expand, to spread, to, widen the boundaries. So, Tanoti, what is Tantra trying to widen? What is Tantra trying to expand? In a very simplistic sense, it is trying to expand your awareness. It is expanding your awareness beyond your normal sense of feeling that you are limited to the body and to the mind, and you're limited to your life situations, and you are this limited embodied being who does not have much power. Tantra is trying to break all these barriers and expand your awareness to the point of realizing Tat Tvam Asi, that you are verily the divine essence. You are the unbounded, timeless, birthless, deathless divine. So Tanoti, fundamentally, Tantra is focused on self-realization, on breaking past all those self-created boundaries, the egoic boundaries which limit our experience, and to help us realize that we are essentially that without boundaries. We are the boundless divine. Now, that is you can think of it as the more, the higher goal, the ultimate goal. But as a progression towards it, Tantra is trying to expand something else. Now, in the Tantric perspective, embodied existence in the body, sensory experience, and all this is sacred. Unlike the Vedantic discipline, which somehow, teaches you to look upon embodied existence as a mere illusion, Tantra, in some sense, also treats this as an illusion, but at the same time, it treats it as a necessary illusion, or it treats it as an illusion that you cannot just dismiss, because that illusion is divinely ordained. The boundless divine has somehow chosen to confine himself or herself as embodied existence. So think of it more like, a person playing a very specific role in a theater play. They are otherwise, maybe they are very wealthy, but in that specific play, they have to play the role of a very poor individual in deep penury and a lot of debt and not having enough food to eat. They are willingly confining themselves to that role there. So Tantra looks at embodied existence like that. The divine, for the sake of bliss, because the divine enjoys this play, the divine is in a very playful mood, wants to confine himself or herself into limited roles. And like playing hide and seek, the divine wants to go into this role and eventually wake up from that role and come back to one's limitless self. So the divine is going back and forth. That is the beautiful tantric perspective. The divine is sort of playing hide and seek with himself. He's playing peekaboo with himself. So Tantra is trying to, while you are being embodied, while you are in this limited drama, self-imposed drama of the divine, within that limited drama, there is a lot of expansion possible. Your sensory experiences can be heightened. Your perceptions can be more illumined. So Tantra is trying to, even within the embodied existence, ultimately it is about going past all this and waking up to your boundless, deathless, infinite nature. But before that, while you are still within the body, within the mind, within the matrix of sensory experiences and mental and emotional experiences, can you expand the boundaries so that you're not trapped in sorrow? And an example, a visual metaphor I would like to give here is, the local power stations in our cities. They basically are processing very high voltage, thousands of volts, the actual electric towers that we see in the countryside and everything. The thick cables, they are probably carrying 10,000 volts or whatever. But at these local power stations, there are step-down transformers which sort of tone down the intensity, and then they distribute a very toned down steady current to our homes. our electrical appliances will run more efficiently on such a current. We cannot, our electrical appliances cannot take power surges or whatever. So these power stations are basically toning down the whole thing. Now, in some sense, the physical body and the conditioned human mind, the mind conditioned with social ideas of good and bad, of right and wrong, and all the knowledge and information that you've accumulated, all of this is in some sense playing the role of a step down transformer. Life is actually sort of bombarding you with a much more intense experience, but over time, because of mental chatter, because of egoic indulgence, me, I, me, I, me, myself, and all that, because of all that self-imposed limitation, and being unaware of that limitation, our senses become dulled, our perceptions become dulled and divisive and sorrow-creating, sorrow-inducing. Therefore, people are actually having a much more dulled experience of life, a much more mediocre experience of life. And Tantra is basically trying to wake us up to that reality and telling us, hey, you're capable of a much more richer experience of life. It's not that we don't have the rich experience. Every now and then, life gives us a window, a peek into something very profound. Think of like being in a music concert, and suddenly the singer or the instrumentalist played a note, and it just struck something so deep in you. And in those few moments, you just lost your social inhibitions, you just forgot you're sitting in a concert, you just suddenly stood up and started clapping loudly, or you just, uttered, aha, how profound. It sort of burst out of you, or in some cases, silently shedding tears in appreciation. Have you sensed how intense those moments are, how divine those moments are? In those moments, you are not, living within the limitations of that step-down transformer. Suddenly, you're having 1,000 volts experience of life. This happens time and again. So it need not only happen in deep spiritual practice. It need not only, happen like a typical Kundalini awakening. No. Those are different things to consider. But this happens every now and then, even in our most mundane experiences, a music concert, or a beautiful sunset while you're on vacation. You're just walking around, snapping photos and everything, and suddenly that sunset arrests you, and there is loss of the feeling of time, and you're no more concerned about, clicking it and trying to make some social media presentation with it. Everything has suddenly stopped, and your mind is just arrested. So Tanoti is about this. This is the widening. While you are still within the embodied matrix, this kind of a widening is possible. And when this happens, you glimpse something very profound, very divine. The divine is not just somewhere in the heaven. The divine is not just to be approached through spiritual sadhana or puja or worship or saying prayers. Whenever you have this kind of an intense experience of life, whenever you're totally present in something, you are having a divine experience. See, there is a very grand mindfulness focus in the world. Mindfulness basically talks this language of being fully present to every experience. Now, in some sense, Tantra is the grand foundation for that. I'm not discounting Buddhist insights, but Tantra also approaches the same destination. That when sensory experiences, you dive into them fully, there occurs an expansion. Your perceptions expand. You suddenly see what you're truly capable of, or you probably suddenly see what you have been missing all along, how much you have dulled yourself, what a mediocre existence we've all grown used to, and what is the real experience we are capable of. So, Tantra is about expanding the frontiers in all these areas. It sensitizes us to this inner dullness, to this inner mediocrity, and it helps us expand. And when we expand, when we go into the full breadth and depth of every experience becomes a window to realize our infinite divine essence. So Tanoti is about that. Hold this meaning in your mind, and if this video has brought you some new insights, then kindly like this video and follow my channel by pressing the bell icon. You could also follow me on Instagram, and I'll be coming up with more such videos to support your spiritual well-being. Thank you. Namaste.